On this episode of The Riff, Martz and Drew sit down to talk about what it actually looks like to find and follow Jesus. Turns out, there's a big difference between being familiar with Jesus and actually following him. Hope this one's helpful. Thanks for listening.
Hello, Riff Raff.
Riff Raff.
Patty whack, give a dog a bone.
No.
That's my attempt.
No.
That's my attempt at singing. You've been singing every episode. I feel like I need to join, but that was
Do you sing?
all the time.
All right. I knew you played the trombone. I knew you had some musical skills.
You know, I have not sang professionally in a long time, so I'm kind of out of the game.
You ever been on a worship team at church?
You know what? I never was.
Really?
Because I was in college. In college, I was in one that traveled around, and we do different things. And I sang. But I was in church. I was always the one running sound.
Yeah.
So that's the route I took. I was very like behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And this is interesting. I don't know if this is a personality thing, but like I'm kind of like uncomfortable with new situations until I've seen it, and then I'm very comfortable. So even like people might, I'm like barely extroverted maybe. Maybe I'm introverted. I don't know.
No.
I don't know. But I feel both sides.
Yeah.
All that to say, growing up, I was very introverted in different settings, and so I'd always choose the like, hey, I'd rather be in the sound booth. Hey, I'd rather be behind the scenes. Hey, I don't want that. And then it was really like later high school, college. It was like, oh, I guess I don't mind this.
Yeah.
And you find ways to refuel in both of those environments. So yeah, I don't know. Were you a singer?
No. Similar. I was sound guy at my dad's church.
Hey, is that just a rite of passage? Hold on.
Is.
Were you also the custodian? Because that was also a part of my role.
No, it's not the custodian. I mean, I was cleaning stuff. Basically, if it needed to be done, me, my brother, my sister were fine. We would end up doing it.
Have I told you this story? Okay, that I was, so I would clean the church, and we ended up moving into a new building. And it was right after I left. Thank God. I went off to college here in Springfield, and the church is in Kansas City. And I get a call from my dad a couple weeks later, and he was telling me about how in the urinals,
I don't like where this is going.
in the urinals, they keep finding like poop. He's like, hey, did you ever have to clean that? I was like, Dad, I would not have cleaned it. So, but he's like, so it must have just started.
You got to
And
ban
I'm like, yes. And so for the next few months, I hope there's nobody from my parents' church listening to this, but for the next few months, they were like, who is doing this? And it was always in like one of the far off bathrooms, not the main one. It was like in the urinals, and it was a little kid that was just like treating it as like a potty. And I think he knew better, but also like, I think it's so hilarious.
Yeah, kids probably. What do you think that kid's doing these days?
I don't know. He's a go-getter.
Yeah. Oh, you know who it is?
You got to know it. Oh, yeah. Hold
Okay.
on. I could probably look him up, but he's great. I think I'm
Here
curious.
at the Riff, we like to protect the names of the innocent.
I'm actually really curious. I haven't looked him up in a while, but I'm like, yeah, dude's not fearful of anything. I bet he's going to go do some crazy stuff one day.
Dude, he's probably another podcast right now talking about, hey, when I was a kid, man, it's kind of messed.
There was I don't know how much we want to talk about.
No,
this
we probably don't want
episode.
to go.
Yeah. Like, come on. We got to get back on task. This is the Riff, though.
We are riffing.
This is the Riff.
And the Riff is not planned at all,
Including
including that story. First time I heard it.
It really isn't. Have I not shared that? I like that story.
No, it's not like we plan this thing. It's like Martz is like, hey, I got a great story to open it up.
I've got the run sheet. We got a whole planning center thing that we go through. And then I'll say this, and then you say this,
that. I got a great
and then
journal
we'll
story.
say the Riff at the same time. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, but we are talking. Hold on. We have been in a series. At North Point.
Let's shift gears.
And honestly, when we're recording this, I have no idea all the topics we're going to be talking about. But we're in this series: find, follow, find.
Yep.
Wait, find and follow. That's the series. But you've said this a lot, and I think really that's what we're hoping to pull out is some. A little bit of your DNA of how you kind of capture this mission of saying, hey, this is how we live this out.
Yeah.
And you've mentioned, as followers of Jesus, we find Jesus, we follow him, but then as we follow him, we re-find him.
Yeah.
Break that down for me.
Yeah, I think, in Christianity, we'd believe that, when you make a decision to find Jesus the first time, it's a salvation moment. As we call it, confess in your mouth and believe in your heart, you will be saved. Like, it's pretty clear. Mm-hmm. This whole born again thing that we talk about. But to me, like that, and that's critically important. Anyone who thinks I'm blasphemous, don't hear what I'm not saying. critically important. However, there's a lifestyle that we're choosing to live the rest of our life that is a continual recommitment to Jesus day in, day out, week in, week out. And not in this overly dramatic way, but it's a simple rhythm of like finding Jesus and following him again and again. Things change, life changes, and you've got to continually like cultivate a relationship with God in every season of your life. And so you have to find him again. And it's not like you get rededicated or recommitted or like every other week. But I'm saying there's got to be seasons and stages where you're like, man, I gotta get close to Jesus through this, especially when circumstances change, and you got to find new rhythms to do that. Example, when I used to have plenty of time to like wake up in the morning and read my Bible and spend time in devotions and all. Then we had a kid, and the kid doesn't care about your devotional time because he's a baby. And so
how inconsiderate these babies. You know how it is, like all of a sudden you realize, new parent, new season, you better find Jesus in a new way. And not just your rhythms or disciplines, but in general, like how are you continuing to stay close to God as you go? Otherwise you're like, you're hinging on a decision that you made 15 years ago to fuel you 15, 20, 30 years later. And it's like, no, I got to continue to cultivate this relationship. I liken it to being married. It's like you got to re-find, you and Mel have 2 kids. You're busy. You both have jobs. You're busy. You can just, every married person knows that feeling of like, oh, I think we're turning into roommates here. And we're not actually like we fell madly in love with each other, that's how this thing started. You found each other, and so that continually refinding that creates a great marriage of like, there's times Chris and I were just busy. We just like, hey, we gotta have a date night, and we're not going to talk about our to-do list or the kids for a full hour. We're just going to like talk about how are we, you have to like continually date each other. And so I don't know if that analogy or parallel works, but when I think about my relationship with the Lord, it's like, you got to continue to come back to be like, God, like I need to be captured by your love again. I need to understand your forgiveness again. I want to sense your grace and your presence again, to where that's part of my life. And then the following part, it's like, there's decisions that the Lord's going to have you make throughout your life that are like into the next stage. Every big decision you make, you're following Jesus. You should be, And so, and there's times where like, whether it's small things throughout the day or whether it's big major life decisions where it's not like, well, I chose to follow Jesus 20 years ago, so I'm going to do what I want. It's like, no, like he's guiding you step by step, and he's building your life alongside you. So I think that awareness of refining him and refollowing him in every stage ultimately is what leads you into purpose, into destiny, into the thing that's ultimate fulfillment of believing you're really co-working and co-building with God. And so when I say find and follow and find, it is a cyclical thing that we continue to do. First time matters. That's where this thing begins. But it is a never-ending pursuit of God that we're running after. You ever read that book, Pursuit of God by A.W. Tozer? Mm-mm.
Game changer, really good.
I do like the marriage analogy, mainly because too, like there are times where we've gone on a week-long vacation and we're like, oh yeah, we love each other again. Yeah, right. Yeah, this is what it's. Oh yeah, this is what it should feel like. We had turned into roommates. And I don't want that relationship with God. I don't want it to be like, and I've got to go on a 1-week spiritual retreat every year to discover who he is in my life. Yeah. I'm like, no, I want this to be a daily thing found in the small moments.
Yeah.
Right? It's not, life isn't margaritas on the beach, right? It's not the 1-week vacation you take out in the destination. It is the everyday moments. And so I think that's important. And when we talk about finding Jesus, we're not like he's lost. Okay? That's not the reality.
He's not hiding from you.
But I love the idea of there are going to be things in your life that you're like, hey, this needs to draw me closer to Jesus.
Yeah.
Walk me through what that's looked like in your life.
I think when you asked that question, the first thing I went to is difficulty and suffering and struggle. What is it going to draw you closer to Jesus or not? And so I think the times where I've been through difficulty and pressure and growth, it's either going to draw you closer to Jesus or it's not. And so when you're going through a difficult time, a difficult moment, a difficult season, following Jesus it's not easy. You don't avoid all the struggles in life. You're still going to go through major struggle, but it's like Jesus is forming you into his image. Like you're becoming more Christ-like as you go. We started the series talking about Peter, and 2 Peter, he opens up the book, and like old man Peter, who's been through this journey of following Jesus, like he sits down to write the letter at the end of his life. And I talked about 1 Peter in church on Sunday, but 2 Peter starts with this, and 2 Peter 1:3. This is like the last thing Peter's saying after a life of following Jesus. He says, his divine power has granted to us all things that pertain to life and godliness through the knowledge of him who called us to his own glory and excellence, by which he has granted to us his precious and very great promises, so that through them you may become partakers of the divine nature. He's saying, like, I know God, and I'm actually starting to become more like Jesus as I got older. Like, I'm becoming a partaker of the divine nature. That's a pretty heavy statement. And he's saying, like, God gave us everything that we needed. He's been through trial, difficulty, struggle, persecution. He's writing a letter to people who are persecuted right now. And he's saying, hey, as you go through this, God's going to give you everything that you need for life and godliness. And he's like, the great promise is that we become more like him. And it's like, you know, we talk about God's promises and blessing like it's more money in a beach house, but his real promise is you'll become more Christ-like as you go. Like, you'll be more filled with his nature as you go. And so if you look at your life as an evolution of like, I get saved on day 367 of my life. Well, the rest of your life is you on this journey called sanctification, where you're actually becoming more Christ-like as you go. You love more, you have more peace, you have more joy, you're moved with compassion more for other people. You also have a deeper connection to God as you go. You ever get around old people who've been like serving God for a long time, and you're like, oh, this person like really knows God. You know what I mean? And they're normally not some bright, flashy person. They have a quiet confidence and humility and richness. You sit down with them and you're like, oh, wow, you are a deep well.
Craig Sloan, Farmer Dan. Those are two that come to my mind right away.
Yeah. Shout out. Yeah. Craig Sloan, Farmer Dan. And Farmer Dan did shave his beard, which means spring has come. He got on me. He's like, you can't say spring hasn't started till a farmer shaves his beard.
So true.
I saw Farmer Dan clean shaven for the first time.
Groundhog Day.
I was like, what? Who is this guy? But yeah, that's a great point. My first time I met Farmer Dan, I walked away thinking, like, that man is deep. He's rich.
He's very comfortable in his own skin. And I think there's a piece of, like, when you know God, you begin to know you in a different way.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's what actually matters at the end of your life, is who you've become in the journey through that formational relationship of choosing to follow Jesus over and over again. And, like, yeah, I think that's like you know those old couples who like start to like dress alike?
I hope to become that one day.
Yeah, one day you will. I believe that.
Thank you.
Mel?
Start
picking out his clothes.
I'd love to become more stylish.
You're pretty stylish.
It's a dream of mine. Thank you.
I think, but you see those couples who are like, you know, they're like 75 years old and they just look happy and they're like dressed like 4th of July for sure is like their time to shine.
100%.
Like matching USA polo
absolutely.
shirts.
Yeah, the Old Navy.
They're still wearing the same New Balance shoes and like they're happy and like it's accidental. They just, you know, Chris and I do it sometimes. Like we're wearing the same thing. But like, why? But they became more like each other as time went on. They became sort of the same person. Like the Bible talks about a relationship with Christ in the church, like as a bride and a bridegroom, and it's like seems kind of weird, but then when you think about it over time, it's like, well, yeah, we start to kind of share a brain. We start to share that we think about things the same way, and it's like you meet these people who's like, man, they just seem to like know God in a level that I don't yet, and like that's that formation over time of continuing to follow, you know.
Well, every time you talk about formation, it is interesting. It's always something very slow. So it's a tree growing.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh my gosh, no, I would hope formation is like, we talk about this at church, you make a decision and your life is different and things have changed.
Yeah.
Not really.
Right.
Like a lot of times you make a decision in your heart and then it's going to feel 5 steps backward.
Right.
And you're like, hold on, is this working?
Right.
Is this, I don't even feel like I made a decision, I'm not even going in the right direction. And the reality is formation takes a long time.
Seasons.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, if you want to bear fruit, like that doesn't happen overnight. You didn't get in the situation that you're in overnight. It doesn't happen overnight. I can think back to just a pivotal time in my life. I had just gotten on staff here at North Point, and I like had gone through just a hard breakup. I was deciding in that moment a little bit like who I want to be in my life. And this would be like when I found Jesus. I've grown up a Christian my whole life. My parents were pastors. I had a deep understanding of who God was, and I feel like it was a very accurate view as well. It was very helpful, and I think but there did come a time where I had to make that decision. And throughout college, I'd kind of done a little bit of whatever I wanted. You know, I'm a Christian. At the same time, like there weren't a lot of times that I was following Jesus.
Yeah,
I was just kind of doing my thing, and I was pretty moral. So, you know, I didn't get called out too many times. But I had broken up with my girlfriend. I was just kind of like down. I was probably living a life that I'm like, I'm not super proud of this. Like if you actually pulled back the curtain, I was like, man, I don't love like who I'm becoming. And that like scared me. And I remember I was going for a run and I heard a podcast. It was Rules of Love, Sex, and Dating by Andy Staley. Mm-hmm. And there's a part in that podcast as I was running that was like, hey, you might have just gone through a really big breakup. And I was like, yeah, I did.
Thanks, Andy Staley.
Thank you. And he was like, hey, what I want you to do is I want you to take a year off dating. And I'm like, that's so dumb. And he's like, and you're probably thinking that's so dumb. I'm like, whoa, no, hold on. Because people would do that. I went to a Christian college. People would do that. And I'm like, that's funny. It's just because you can't get a date.
Yeah.
Or I'm dating Jesus.
Easy for you
I'm like,
to say.
Yeah, for real.
Who'd want to date you?
Brutal. But I always made fun of people like that. I'm like, it's just like, that's not how that works. Like, you don't need to do that. Okay. But he's like, you should take a year off dating because what I want you to do is like, I want you to renew your mind. And I'm like, what does that even mean? He's like, you might be thinking, what does that even mean? And I'm like, oh my word, I think I need to do this. And so I'm going on this run and I'm like, one, I just need to change so many aspects of my life. Like sometimes whenever you feel like you're rock bottom, you're like, it's not one thing. It's like 20 things that I need to adjust. And I'm feeling the weight and the pressure of that. And I don't even know how to do that. But I'm like, I know who I want to be one day. And I know that, I talk about this often. I know the story that I want to tell and I want to be proud of that story. And I don't know how to do that, but at least in like this one area of dating in my life, like I know I can do that. And by the way, as I'm making this decision in dating, like I want to make this decision in my faith. Right. Like, God, would you renew my mind? And he kind of walked through what that would be like. Like what does it look like to take a year off dating? What would that actually do to your life? And he just kind of talked about how you're going to notice yourself in situations and you're going to notice like how you want to be. And you're also going to notice how God wants you to be. You're going to notice how, you want to be the center of attention because you want to get somebody's attention.
Yeah.
And he's like, all of a sudden, if that's off the table, you start to act differently. You start to live differently. You start to participate differently. All of a sudden, you're not trying to be the center of attention to then, get this girl's number, to then walk away, to start a conversation on the side. Like, he's like, you're just going to start living differently. And over that year, what God is going to do slowly is renew your mind. He's going to help you see things the way that he sees things. And obviously you don't just like not date for a year. He's like, you read scripture, you pray. Yeah. There are other formational elements that come with that. But he's like, just taking a couple things off the table to be able to focus on him, you're going to find that your mind starts to renew. And he's like, you might even meet your wife 6 months in. Don't date her. So it's fascinating is 6 months in to me doing this, my wife Mel ends up getting hired at our Sunshine campus. Okay. We used to have a campus on East Sunshine. And it's funny, actually, the house we live in now, we can overlook the Sunshine campus. We see it from our backyard. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
But 6 months in, she started working there, and I'm like, I kind of like this girl, I don't know, but I was doing this year-long thing. So I remember like, it was like I was like 8 months in and we kind of started talking and I'm like, hey, like, I just want to see this thing through. And it was awesome, man. The day that it ended and we got to start dating and like, that was, I truly believe like that's the thing I needed to walk into a healthy marriage. And that wasn't just a marriage thing or a dating thing or a relational thing. That was a faith thing for me.
Yeah.
To say, for this year, God, I'm actually giving you me. Because for me, it was probably like, well, I'm actually doing this to impress some other people around me.
Yeah.
And that's the thing I needed. And that's not my advice for every high school or college age person to be like, you should just take a year of dating. I bet that will work. But I'm like, I know that's what I needed.
Yeah.
And it's just weird that found me at a unique time at probably a time where I was ready to make decisions that unless I was forced to, maybe I wouldn't have before.
Yeah.
But it was just a low moment. And, it just slowly over time. So some people talk about a big conversion that happened on a Sunday and then they've been changed ever since. And I totally believe in that. I think that's possible. God can do that in you and through you. For me, that was just not the case. It was a slow burn over a year and then some of just, who do I want to be? How do I do that? How do I just keep engaging in you, God, and you keep transforming my heart so that I can walk in this? I'd listen to messages, 4 messages in a row, like this. I'd sit through multiple services to hear these things, for it to go through my head, for me to finally get it and then start applying it. And it's just what I needed. And everybody's different.
I think it's like when we talk about find and follow, like that was not, again, we tend to, as Christians, try to create and curate a moment that someone's like, boom, I went from a light switch, boom, dark to light. That does happen. But so many people I meet have a story similar to yours. You're like, I was around Jesus. I kind of knew, but there was this formational season of my life. And this was a 12-month period of your life, right? It was a 12-month dimmer switch where something really happened and you went from dark to light day by day. And now that you look back, you're like, that was a season that I found and followed Jesus. And you would have already said you were a follower of Jesus, right?
Yeah,
you probably
totally.
On the is he saved or not?
Totally.
You were yes.
Yeah.
But you really found Jesus in a compelling way that caused you to follow him in a whole different way over a year-long period.
And it was really a starting line to say, this is the rest of my life now. And same thing for Mel. It's not like we don't high five after 8.5, almost 9 years of marriage and be like, dude, we made it. We got this. Mel, you and I, we did this. Like, it's perfect now.
Yeah.
It's a continual thing.
Right.
Which is why I like the analogy, because these aren't things that you win. These aren't things that ever end. And the best things in life are tension to manage. You are always going to be managing that tension between God and humanity. You're always going to be managing that tension between your wife and your kids and your time and your money and your resources. And God sees you through that. And it's not a problem to solve. It's a tension to manage.
Right. I think it's a lot of people's stories are the fade, not the switch. I mean, just a lot of people. And there's probably somebody listening like, oh, maybe like if you look back in your life and be like, yeah, I can go back to a season more than a day or a moment where it's like, no, God formed me in that season, And it is the lifetime commitment. There's that like old, the old married couple where the wife says to the husband, like, how come you don't tell me you love me anymore? He's like, well, I told you I loved you on the day we got married. And if something would have changed, I would have told you.
I'll let you know.
We can be that way with God, where we don't have any affection towards him. And it's like, well, I just made this decision. Like we can culturalize Christianity so much. Like, well, I made a decision back at this church back in 1997. So I'm good. I don't think that's the life God wants for you. Like, good, I'm glad that happened. But like, man, what happened about 1997? What about 7 o'clock yesterday? You know what I mean? Or like, what do you think he's doing in your life now? Like, what do you think he wants to do now? Like, what do you, and so when you really view it as like, I'm going to follow Jesus in my life. It's a lifetime commitment,
I think of it this way. There's a lot of Christians who have been a Christian for 15 years, but they have 1 year of experience repeating that same year 15 times. That's the reality. Yeah. It's like, well, and this is what it looks like, and this is what it is.
Yeah.
And you repeat it and you repeat it and you repeat it. I just believe God has something new and something fresh for you. That is where that freedom in Christ comes in. That's where, your yes is blessed. That's where there's things that you could have never imagined in your life. Like they can become a reality because you've fully given yourself to him. And it's 15 years of gained accrued experience versus 1 year of experience 15 times. Yeah,
totally. Yeah. I think it's depth. I don't know. I just thought of this when you're saying that, but like we had a huge tree fall down in our yard in the storm last year. And we went out and you count the rings on the tree to see how old it is. Yeah. It's like a 77-year-old tree. It's like super sad because we had to cut it down and looking at the stump. And you're like, man. But it was like every year, the tree didn't move. It didn't change. Same tree. Off mic cough.
Bless you.
Allergies, speaking of trees. It was the depth. It was the quality. It was the richness of it,
Yeah, I understand that. And I do think a lot of the things when we talk about this, a lot of things Jesus talks about are these slow moving things. There's something that maybe you've heard of, rule of life. This is a John Mark Comer type of deal, but he talks about the rule of life. And a lot of times when I think about rules, I get like, please don't tell me any. I'm not a rules guy. Okay,
that's one of Marx's hot buttons.
I'm not rules. Don't tell me what to do. Okay. But he talks about rule is what a rule is actually is like a trellis. So it's like one of those, I don't know, X type things that like plants grow up on.
Yeah.
So like, when you think about a plant or you think about a tree or whatever, it's easy for you to just think, okay, and it just like grows out and just kind of keeps getting bigger. But like when you apply like a rule of life, and this is like principles on how you live, and how you actually like we call it formations. Okay, this is how you'd actually like form your life to God. And we have the 5 habits. When you begin to do these things, what it actually helps you do is like grow up. So it's not a rule that you got to live by. It's actually something that is put in place to help you grow up spiritually.
Right.
And so we have those 5 habits at North Point that we talk about pretty regularly, because these are great places to start to say, hey, I would love to be doing these 5 things. And when you're doing these 5 things, this isn't, again, rules to manage. And there's always going to be attention to manage within them, because how do I do all 5 so well? And there's always going to be one that you feel like you're failing at, and but like, these are great principles to have in your life. It's like, you know what? If I haven't been arrows out in the last year and I haven't served anybody other than myself, hey, that's a great check up from the neck up and say, hey, I'm going to go do that.
Yeah.
I'm signing up for the next Get Back event. And even if I got to take off work to go do it, because this is a principle I live by. This is a value that I have in my life.
Yeah.
And I want to be this. If you haven't read scripture, that's not like a shame. I can't believe you. It's just saying like, hey, if I don't have that integrated in my life right now, man, that's a value that I have. I need to make sure that I'm carving out time in my day to be able to do that. And I might need to sacrifice some other things to be able to do it.
Yeah. I think about people I know, like I think about my dad that's been who's been reading scripture daily for 45 years. I mean, he's a walking like concordance. He just can spout it off, and he's not like some weirdo just like rattling off scripture, but I'll be like talking about something, sermon prep, and he'll be like, yeah, it's like this verse. And he just, off the top of his head, he knows chapter and verse.
Yep.
He didn't have to look it up in that moment. He just knew it because over time he'd been doing that. And it's like, yeah, I think over time, that stability, that consistency, it creates a depth in you, but it's the lifetime of following Jesus, and like that cycle that we stay in. It creates a level of depth and richness that, I think about, like, you're talking about that story. There's a story where the disciples are trying to cast out a demon, and they bring him to Jesus because they can't.
Yeah.
And he's like, this one only comes out through prayer and fasting, and then he casts it out. He didn't pray or fast in that moment.
Yeah.
He had been someone who prays and fasts.
A lot of times we think that to grow spiritually, it's like, okay, let me just do 10 push-ups real quick and now I'll be able to lift this heavy weight.
Right.
No, that is over time, you grow the muscles to be able to do that. Mm-hmm. And spiritually, we just see it differently for some reason. We're like, okay, I let me pray and fast for a day and now I'll be able to do this. That's not how that works.
Right.
And that also is like a very transactional thing with God, and that's not growing your affection for Him. It's that's a completely different thing.
Either.
No,
He's not like, hey, I hope I have some minions who just jump at my command.
How much can you sacrifice for me?
Right,
that'd be awesome.
He wants relationship with you.
Yes.
And I think that's the thing. It's like and not many things happen fast with God. We're a microwave culture, and He's a farming God, and so he seasons, cultivation, roots, health. All those things matter. We want, press the button, I get that, And the problem is, a whole other episode from another day, we've popularized that thinking in modern church to say, hey, give and get. We try to create these simple, like Western thinking, fast reaction things that have only fueled consumer Christianity, not slowed it down, where it's like, it's almost like we're asking God to be transactional because that's how the rest of our life works. We want God to be Amazon. Press a button here in 2 days. This is not how it works.
Yeah, and consistency trumps intensity, and that's the reality. Is we just, in order to bypass consistency in our life and discipline, it's like, well, I just we'll be very intense in a few moments, right? And you see this. And a lot of people that especially at the new year, right, in the gym, you see that at the new year with God, of like people showing up because, hey, this is something I want on my New Year's resolution. I want my family to be this and that. Yeah. And it's easier to have intensity than consistency, but consistency is going to bring you the growth that you actually want.
And I think intensity lends itself to religious weird stuff.
Very true.
Where it's like, all right, I'm going to do this and get that. And then we get very regimented. And then we're like, why do I feel far from God? Because you got really religious, but you weren't finding and following Jesus. And it's easy to slip into that, and so that's part of what we want to do too, is cultivate an environment where we're yes, going to give you practices and things you can do to help, but it's also like, hey, have a hunger in your heart, like a hunger for God and a hunger for his presence, a hunger for his word, like to know him. And when you know him, everything else begins to change. You begin to know his voice. That's another thing too, it's cultivated over time. What does God's voice sound like? It's hard to describe, but you know it when you know it, and the more you cultivate it, the more you hear it. So anyway.
I love this relentless pursuit to find and follow and find.
Yeah, and it's not a destination to get to. It's a journey to stay on. Stay on the journey, and the journey forms you. There's no finish line.
See you, Riff Raff.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Riff. We'll have a brand new episode every week, wherever you find podcasts.